Number 1. I was maybe around 13 to 14 years old at the time, and I was recently granted the privilege of staying home alone. Every now and then when I was home alone, I'd hear sounds coming from upstairs, and so I would instinctively call my mom. She then told me a story of how she used to hear things in her old house all the time, and how it's just the house settling in. Fast forward to many instances of sounds later, I decided that the very next time I was going to be home alone, I was going to be completely silent and make as little noise as possible. Within the first half an hour, there was nothing. Not a peep out of the entire house. I eventually got bored and felt safe, so I went to go grab the TV remote and watch some TV. But a few seconds before I grabbed the remote, I heard a huge crash upstairs and running footsteps. I was sure more than ever that someone was in the house. By now, there were plenty of consistent sounds coming from upstairs that it was a fact that someone was up there. 14-year-old me decided to hatch a quick plan. Being the skinny, most non-threatening little girl I was, I first grabbed a kitchen knife. Then, I grabbed a shoe and propped open the front door. And after a few moments of some deep breaths, I yelled out in the deepest voice I could, "I know you were upstairs. I'm giving you a chance to leave without me calling the police, but I have propped the front door open, and I will be in the bathroom. Be aware that I am holding a knife, and if you refuse to leave, I will call the police." Sure enough, I walk into the bathroom with my knife, absolutely scared to death that someone will open the door. I wait and I wait until the one sound that to this day will always scare me for this reason. I heard the front door close, and the shoe was moved. I quickly locked the door and turned on the alarm system. I hope to never see this person, or even hear this person again. Number 2. So I met a guy online recently that seemed sweet and kind. I decide to set up a date on Friday, and everything is going well. That is, until yesterday. I get a message telling me that he wants to hang out tomorrow morning, and I agree, thinking that we would just go out for Starbucks and he'd come around the time we agreed. I go to sleep with a smile on my face. Instead, I wake up to a phone call around 8 a.m. Surprised, I answer it, and it's my date. "Hey, are you up yet?" "I just woke up." "I don't care how you look. Also, your mom freaked me out." "My mom?" "Yeah, she saw me parked across your house. She waved and I waved back. She was kinda creepy." "What time did you come over here?" 5:30 a.m. My heart sinks. I had no idea that someone I was casually meeting for coffee would show up super early to my house and wait for me to wake up. After the phone call, I check my messages. I see messages from 5 in the morning, a picture of my house with the message, "Do you live here?" The next message he says, "Someone spotted me, so I moved," along with a picture of a neighbor's house nearby. Obviously, I was freaked out myself and knew that my mother and neighbors were probably equally as freaked out. I start panicking and texting my friends on my phone, desperate to see if anyone was awake and could help me at all. I get one reply on a group chat, but out of fear of judgment, I lied to her, saying I got the situation handled. I convinced myself to go out and confront this guy. "Hi, princess, how are you?" I noticed him on my neighbor's yard, probably trying to look for me in their windows. Shaking, I try to fake a smile and let him hug me. He then goes in for a kiss, wet, messy, and with tongue. I felt frozen on what to do. I try to tell him that coming at 5 a.m. to wait for me isn't a cool thing to do, but he gives me the excuse that he wanted to beat traffic and not drive sleepy as he works nights. I try to see some things from his perspective and shake it off. I go off into his car, and he and I try to have something close to a regular date, which usually doesn't include groping, licking my neck multiple times, and talking about marriage right away so I could have his baby. I managed to convince him to drop me away from home. I managed to convince him to drop me off away from home and let me walk back to my house. That is, until I realized he was following me in his car, and when I asked about it, he asked if I wanted him to walk me to my house. Even more scared, I tell him no and manage to escape. By the time I arrive home, I'm in tears and extremely shaky. I text him that I don't think we're compatible and to never come near me or my family ever again. In response, he tells me that I'm shit. From that, I think I'm gonna take a break from online dating. Number 3. My boyfriend who I live with works as a teacher in town about 15 minutes away by train. He gets home more or less at the same time every day, give or take an hour or so. I, on the other hand, work from home. In late January of this year, we'd gotten into a pretty big fight about something stupid. I can't even remember what it was about now, but it was one of those fights where we didn't speak to each other, text, call, or anything the whole next day. So this afternoon, I was lying in bed getting work done. It was a Tuesday, and I was pretty sure his last class finished at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays, meaning he'd surely be home at 2:30. But around 1 p.m., I heard the front door open and shut. I thought, I guess he's home an hour early today. It was normal for him to skip his last class every once in a while, so I didn't really think anything of it. In fact, I was mostly mentally preparing for the awkward post-fight, "Hey, how's it going?" conversation. So I continued to lie in bed and do my work and wait for him to come in and change his clothes. The bedroom door was closed and I had earplugs sort of half in, as I usually do when I'm working. But I could hear the heavy footsteps of him walking around the apartment, as he always does. If we hadn't been mid-fight, and I wasn't so preoccupied with the awkwardness of it all, I might have noticed it was strange how slow the footsteps were, or how long he spent walking around the living room. But I was caught up in the dramatics of the fight, and didn't think about it. I was just lying there, waiting for him to finally come in. Finally, the bedroom door slowly opened, just a few inches. I turned my head toward the door and prepared to give him a sort of awkward, "We've been fighting for 24 hours, smile, but the door didn't open more than a few inches. I looked and I saw that it was a woman's hand with red nail polish on the doorknob. Whoever was there slowly closed the door just as they had opened it. Without entering the room, I jumped out of bed, ripped out my earplugs, and sort of just froze there for a few seconds while thinking rapidly. My first thought was, that was not my boyfriend. Then I thought, could this have been his mom? His sister? The landlady? For some reason I concluded that surely it was his mom or sister. So I opened the bedroom door and walked into the living room. There wasn't anyone there, but the room smelled heavily of woman's perfume. Then I came to my senses and realized his mom and sister don't have keys and have never come over before. The landlady has never entered without permission. This was a stranger. I ran back into the bedroom and shut the door, now shaking heavily. There is a balcony connected to the bedroom, so despite the cold January rain, I stood on the balcony and called my boyfriend. He picked up and I asked him if his mom or sister might have come over unannounced. He told me, "No, don't move, I'm calling the police." The police were there in minutes and searched the whole apartment. Of course, nobody was there by this point. It was weird though. Nothing was missing from the apartment despite us keeping a jar full of money right in the entrance. Nothing was even touched. In fact, it seemed like the intruder came straight to the bedroom, saw my legs on the bed, panicked, and left. Plus, you can't open that big wooden front door without a key. For a few days, my boyfriend and I were convinced it was just the landlady being nosy. I began to feel better. Nevertheless, we demanded that the landlady change our locks. When she came to change them with her husband, she made a discovery. There was a square area by the keyhole that had been scratched away with something. The landlady said surely someone used tools to break into the apartment. Then a day or two later, my boyfriend told me, "I have something to tell you, but don't freak out." He told me that the orange kitchen scissors were missing. I obviously freaked out. I tore the apartment apart looking for those scissors. It's been 6 months, and those scissors are gone. So the whole thing is just creepy and weird. A stranger breaks into a nice apartment, but doesn't touch or take anything valuable, not even the money jar sitting right at the entrance. Takes scissors from the kitchen, goes straight to the bedroom, sees someone in bed, and immediately leaves. I never got to meet the person who opened the door that day. I hope I never do. Number 4. I was 13 years old at the time, now 22, and on vacation with my parents in Turkey. We were in an all-inclusive hotel enjoying the holiday. The hotel was full of tourists from different countries. There was this one guy, around 20, who was staring at me for some time. I felt uncomfortable and asked him how he was doing. Wrong choice. The next few days, everywhere I was, he also suddenly appeared. Not flirting, just lurking for hours, watching me. He had a really strange vibe around him, and I felt I shouldn't be alone with him. Now I was still young, so my parents didn't want to leave me alone in a foreign country, so he could not bother me. But one night, there was entertainment in the hotel, which became boring to me after some time. I told my parents I wanted to go to my own hotel room, and I would see them in the morning. I left and walked to the elevator. What I didn't know was that the guy who had been watching me for days saw me leaving and had followed me. When I saw him also coming, I was in great fear. He looked at me silently with a sinister smile. This is it, I thought. Rape, assault, or maybe even worse. And just before the doors of the elevator were closing, someone stuck his boot in it in order to prevent the doors from closing. I am not kidding. All I could see was a boot. The doors opened, and it was my dad. He saw that the creepy guy was leaving the exact same time I left and didn't trust it. He looked the guy in the eye and said hello. My dad took me to my hotel room. To this day, I'm so glad for the rescue because I don't want to know what would have happened if he didn't.